here is the gentleman who originated the program, FYI, Dave Vickers. He is our guest today. I had a chance to listen to the City Watch program, found it very interesting. I thought maybe we could expand upon that. Of course, we're talking about the Home Rule Charter. Is that the correct?
That is exactly the title. That's what it's called. First question is, well, the quickest history lesson, I won't get into because I don't remember all of it. I don't know all the details and why, but back in 1986, probably they started this effort, something that the state started to allow cities to write their own form of government, that they could do a few local tweaks, but instead of following exactly what the state code said for the form of government and how you operate, cities were allowed to do their own charter, kind of like a constitution. That was back in the 80s, 86 somewhere. There was a start, and I should have brought the original list because it's quite interesting to see those names. I should have brought that. They started that in Clinton. Clinton is one of the few cities that took that task underway. They spent, again, I don't know how long developing what is a charter, which is based on the form of government, how many council members, how the council is composed, powers and duties. One of the biggest things that those communities who had a charter were allowed to do is what's called an initiative and referendum. That's what was used a few months ago to propose the ordinance that the city can't sell parkland without a public vote. That was because there was a home rule charter. Without the home rule charter, citizens would not have been able to petition for that to happen. That was one of the big issues. With that in mind, there are still very few cities that have a home rule charter. Cedar Rapids, Marion has a form, Iowa City is one of the ones, and Fort Dodge and Clinton. And that's about it in the state of Iowa.
So you, of course, were in our news department for years. So you have a great interest in news and in government. Is this why you wanted to be a part of this committee? In part, I
can't count on two hands the number of meetings of governments that I've covered over the years, and that's why there was an interest. And that was interesting because I remember covering the Home Rule Charter meetings back in the day, and so I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So that's why I threw my name in, mentioned how it got formed, and then the charter was established in '87. Kind of forgotten in there, there's a section that says the city may, it doesn't say they have to, they may review the charter every 10 years. Well, from '87 until last year, nobody ever reviewed the charter. So when I think, to be quite honest, I think when they did the petition for the parks issue, that came to light. So that's what drove the idea of let's do a review. No, there have been no questions, no issues, but anyway, I know Iowa City has done one because I've talked with a gentleman in Iowa City a couple of times about their process, try to learn. But anyway, they've done it. They have actually done it every 10 years. That's kind of a standard thing in the Home Rule Charter.
So there is an actual document.
There's an actual document.
What you have to do.
Yes, you could look if you want. So you go to the without in front of you, you go to the city website. You look for ordinances. And then you get to that page, and then you look for, in the ordinances, there's a click to Home Rule Charter. There's an actual document, contains preamble, powers of the city council, mayor, city manager, boards, commissions, committees, initiative and referendum, and how to amend it. So it is an actual document in city records that the city follows.
Before we get into more of the program, again, Dave Vickers, our guest. He is the chair, as I understand. Talk about the other committee members, Dave.
The committee was, I'll give a quick lesson. The city decided to do this. They took applications. There were 34, 35, 36 people who submitted applications back in, I think, January, February. There were actually, then a few dropped out. I think there were 20-some who actually interviewed with the appointments committee of the city. And every one of those people who wanted to had a brief remarks to the appointment committee. They were ranked by the appointment committee, and then since it's the mayor's appointment, it's his choice, but he had the ranking of that, of all the people who applied, and generally the mayor picked the top 11. A few things tweaked here and there, but that's up to him. That's how we ended up with, there's 9 members on the committee. They chose to appoint 2 alternates, kind of like described as a jury. There's always alternate jurors, so if a juror has to drop out, gets sick, something happens, there's somebody who's heard all the arguments, had a chance to input, they can step right in. And out of that results, the committee was appointed as Bill Mashevitz, who was just on a few minutes ago, and then John Eisenman, Joe Hoingus, Sean Connell, Matt Brish, Ryan Veenstra, Rich Phelan, Aaron George, and our alternates are Don Hanson and Kenyon Clark, and of course me. That's the committee. We meet right now the first and third Wednesday at typically 4 o'clock at City Hall. Meetings are open to the public. There's a public comment period. We'll stress that. If somebody wants some input, we'll give you some other ideas, other ways you can provide input if you want to as well. But that's the committee.
What are some of the things that you're looking at right now, Dave, when you guys do get together as a committee?
Well, we'll start. Basically, we have spent most of the time to this point on the city council and the mayor. Those are probably the two, I don't want to say controversial, but the 2 issues that draw the most attention and would draw the most attention from the public. And one of the big things that has been in place so far is reducing the council from 7 members, 4 wards, and 3 at large to 5 at large council members. That's probably the biggest thing we've done. There's some other issues still talking about council. There's some things there. And we spend a lot of time talking about the powers of the mayor. There's some. We promised when we started that we would allow vigorous discussion on all the issues. So we're having a lot of vigorous discussion on the powers of the mayor and how much power the mayor should have in the city versus what, and there's a vigorous discussions, we'll say, differing views.
As you pointed out, these are open to the public. And will the mayor or any council member sit in on some of these meetings that you've had?
They're public meetings so far. They have the mayor started because we were. He was kind of helping us with the technology part of it, but we've kind of taken that over. They're allowed to come if they want. We really haven't had any. We've had some input from some council members. You want to get input. Some people believe the council should not have any input. Some say they should. Well, some have decided they wanted to put their voice in the mix, and it's taken just like any other public comment. And if other council members may at some point, I can't say, but they haven't asked. They can put that in if they want.
Before we do break for the weather, let's talk about the reasoning why you want to go to 5 at large rather than have various wards. What are some of the arguments there?
The argument is, and part of the idea is that there's a belief that will create an interest in more people running. There'll be more competition. There's a lot of people know there's a lot of council races that go uncontested. Believe that this will help increase competition for council seats, which it would be a good idea. That the council may be a little more, with 5 members, it may be a little more efficient to be able to make decisions in a smoother, quicker fashion. Government moves slow by design, but there's a belief that 5 can maneuver things a little faster and make those decisions quicker.
I would imagine you've probably looked at other communities to see how many council members they have, maybe communities more along the lines of our size, like a Burlington or a Muscatine.
5 is actually the most common number of council members across the state. Not every place. I didn't bring my list, but and there's a variety of issue, variety of ways done, but 5 is actually the most common form, the most common number of council members in the state. Cullingmore has we don't that how some of those work, but bigger towns than us, smaller towns than us. For example, Macokota has 7, which we would have 5. Comanche has 5. Comanche and Macokota probably comparable populations. There's a disparity. I believe DeWitt has 5. I'm not positive. Somebody in DeWitt can call us, but Cedar Rapids, I think, has some do it different. They might have 6 or 7. I think Iowa City might have. Iowa City's got an odd form. I'm not going to, but I think they might have 6. But one of the council members becomes the mayor. They're elected as a council member, then the council picks the mayor. Oh, okay. So that's why they have an odd setup in Iowa. So there's all kinds, but 5 is kind of the common number. 7 is an unusual number.
More with Dave Vickers on today's FYI program. A check of the weather brought to you by Air Control.
Mostly sunny skies, becoming partly cloudy at times this afternoon. Temperatures reaching the low 90s. It will feel like mid-90s. Partly cloudy tonight, warm and humid. Overnight lows in the low 70s. With your Storm Track 8 weather impact forecast, I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzky.
Fair skies, we're at 79 degrees. Winds now more out of the southwest. Our update brought to you by Air Control.
Simple. That's something we all can appreciate. And when it comes to servicing your air conditioner this summer, nothing is more simple than calling Air Control Inc. in Clinton, Iowa. Day or night, hot or cold, Air Control is your local comfort solution. Schedule your service today by calling 243-7228.
Day or night, hot or cold, call Air Control. Your affordable comfort solution.
FYI with Dave Vickers on today's program, we're talking about the Home Rule Charter, the original charter approved in 1987. All of a sudden it's resurfaced here, and Dave heads up the committee of 9 members with 2 alternates. One of the things, and again you were on City Watch, and an interesting program, but Bill is kind of limited in his time. I thought it'd be great to have you on and go to the bottom of the hour. One of the things you've got on your notes here, initiative and referendum. Not all charters have that.
That's true, and cities have to have a charter if they're going to have it. It's not. This is. I think I can safely say that's not going to change. We'll get that in a minute, but initiative and referendum is a process that allows, as people remember the DeWitt Park issue, allows the citizens to petition the council to repeal an ordinance, change an ordinance, fix, do either repeal, establish an ordinance, that the citizens can make that happen. That's one of the attractions of a charter, is the citizens have a say-so. And the council, if they get the petition, this is where it gets. There were some issues that how this is handled, but it got handled and probably handled properly. It just was because it's hardly ever been used. It doesn't get used very often, but it's in there. I'm not sure. It may have been used one time previously. I don't remember. There's some debate about that, whether it was ever used before or not. But the charter spells out the process. And any questions, the process is the same. For example, when we use Iowa City, because their charter, a lot of it's cut and paste language between the charters. There's kind of a template that people used and tweaked a few things locally. There's an exacting process to do that as far as petition drives, and you can't just leave a petition on the counter at some store and people can sign. I mean, there's a whole process. The number, because we haven't got that far yet. We're trying to go through this in order, but we had some initial kind of overall discussions. The number to prompt for the initial referendum may be a little higher than what in today's world that we think it should be. What number? I believe it's a minimum of 1,500. But it was also, the charter was also written when the population was 35, 36, 37,000. So that number may get tweaked a little bit. I'm not going to guarantee that, but that's something that when we get to it. But that's the basis of the initiative and referendum. that was attractive about charters back in the 80s was allowing citizens to have more input into their government.
Okay, so you get the whatever number of petition names you have, you take it to the council. How does that process work?
Well, that's out of our committees. That's the council's job.
Right.
But the way it was handled there, it says basically in the charter it outlines how that is done. The council can, if there's legal scholars out there, let me know if I misspeak. But basically, the council can take that petition like they did with the DeWitt Park and adopt that ordinance that's proposed.
Okay.
Or they can send it to a public vote. The council is the one that chooses how that petition is handled. That's outlined in the charter, how that's done. That process is probably not going to change because that follows some state code issues. The number is what may get tweaked a little bit, but that process is there, how that's handled. So basically, the council can approve it, or the council can send it on to a public vote.
Again, visiting with Dave Vickers about the Home Rule Charter. The committee has recently been formed. Is this committee something that's going to be with us for some time?
No.
Okay.
The term is 1 year, 12 months.
Okay.
We'll call it, I just say 1 year. So it's not January to January, it's 12 months. We started in, I believe, April. So before next April, we have to be done. Every member's terms expires in that 12-month period.
So what are some of the things that you are looking to accomplish since you only got 12 months to do so? And again, you do meet twice a month.
Twice a month, first and third Wednesdays. Okay. I said the council is the composition of the council and the powers of the mayor, and those are the two main issues. If we get those settled, the rest of it is pretty much when you're talking about boards and commissions, that's pretty boilerplate stuff. There's not, initiative referendum, we might, there's going to be some discussion on the number. I can about guarantee that. Beyond that, says those are the two issues. Once we get the council and the mayor done, we come to some compromises on that and what we think is the best way to move the city forward with a charter.
So if you do decide to go with the 5 at large, does the committee take a vote then, or do you have to be unanimous in that?
No, it has to be where it's a majority vote. Majority rules, just like the city council. When the majority votes, then that's the way it is.
All right.
And then the process, once we get our work done, and we'll have to have some discussions about how this is going to work, because there's a couple of ways that this can happen. And again, I think I haven't really worried too much about that part of it, but we present this to the council. Here's our suggestions. We're basically an advisory committee. We can say, here's our suggestions to amend the charter that we think serves our community the best. These are some ideas that we think serve our community.
So you got started in April. Yeah. You're 3 months basically into it. How do you think things have gone so far? Do you think the committee is progressing the way you like to see them progress?
I think, I think everybody knew what the issues were going to be, and that's pretty typical. The mayor and the council, what rules, those were the two main topics. That's where we're at, and that's where we're at. We spent a lot of time on it. There's a lot of discussion, vigorous discussion, differing points of view, and there's some legal things to consider that we get the city attorney involved in. So we'll come up with a plan. Hopefully, I don't think it'll take too long. Once we get that done, it'll be relatively quick. Like I said, we get it to the council. Then the council. It's in the council's hands how they want to proceed. Our job is done. Once we give our recommendation to the council, our job is done. Okay. And then they can approve it, They can say, we like this, and approve it. I believe that, or they can send it to a vote. They can approve it. If the citizens want to vote on it, then they can petition the council to make a vote, to have a public vote on it. Finding out if this is where it gets a little murky. In lowering the council numbers, the composition of the council, as they call it, it will take a public vote. That takes a separate petition not related to the charter to do. How that's going to work with the charter, we'll have to figure that out because it's not our job. We recommend this is the best chance. The council doesn't run that charter process. That's a citizen charter. And so that's out there to change the composition of the council that we're finding out that I think can have some impact because that's going to take a public vote to do that. I've not done all the research. I've had one person who knows the state is not sure that he's heard of anybody lowering the number of their council members before. There's a certain section of the code that outlines the process, but not sure if anybody's actually done it before.
Appreciate your time. We've got about a minute or two left in today's program. Have you received some public input? I know you've only got started with this.
Very limited. I'll throw it out here. Maybe I'll mention it a couple times. If somebody wants to email us, we have an email that's called, get your pencil out, homerulecommission@cityofclintoniowa.gov. And that will get us, if you'd like to email in comments or your ideas, homerulecommission@cityofclintoniowa.gov is the email address to get us those. We do set aside a portion of time at our meetings for public input. If somebody wants to come and address the commission, that's okay. We have time allotted for that on our agenda.
So again, the first and third Wednesdays at 4 o'clock at City Hall. All right.
And the agendas are posted on the city website.
Okay. So
just like all the other committees.
Home Rule Commission at cityofclintoniowa.gov. So Dave, again, you started this program back in what, the 80s?
Well, you're asking, says, I believe, without looking, I believe Roger Holm was the mayor. I think he was he might have been the first guest.
Okay.
Because I believe he was one of the ones who kind of wanted a show like this. One of the reasons we started, he says, hey, can I come in and talk about city stuff once a month? So that kind of kicked it off. And so how long ago Roger Holm was the mayor, look that up, and then
you'll know.
Then you'll know.
So what was it like to be answering the questions rather than throwing the questions out?
Oh, pretty easy.
Okay.
Pretty easy. If you ask the questions, then you ought to be able to. You should know how to answer the questions. So.
I appreciate your time. Thanks
so much.
Thanks,
Gary.
The Dan Patrick Show.